Today I want to tell you about an event that changed how the world thinks about radiation safety. It wasn't a nuclear power plant meltdown or a weapons test gone wrong. Instead, it was a series of innocent decisions that led to a tragedy in an ordinary Brazilian city. This is the story of the Goiânia accident, where a medical device abandoned in a vacant hospital unleashed invisible danger upon thousands of unsuspecting people. Hello, and welcome to Deadliest Disasters, where we cover some of the most devastating events that happened throughout history. Our story begins at the Radiotherapy Institute in Goiânia. It was a radiotherapy clinic that relocated to new premises in 1985. In their haste to move, they left behind a teletherapy unit containing 93 grams of Caesium-137. A small amount by weight, but one with extraordinary radioactive power. Caesium-137 is a radioactive isotope commonly used in medical equipment, specifically in cancer treatment machines called teletherapy units. It emits gamma radiation that can kill cancer cells, but that same power makes it extremely dangerous to healthy tissue. Radiation damages cells at their most fundamental level, breaking DNA, causing mutations, and ultimately leading to radiation sickness with symptoms like nausea, vomiting, hair loss, organ failure, and in severe cases, death. In 1987, Goiânia was a growing city of about 1 million people in central Brazil. Goiânia is located in the state of Goiás. It lies 130 miles southwest of Brazil's capital. Most residents had little to no knowledge about radiation or its dangers. Why would they? This wasn't a nuclear facility town, it was just home. The cesium was sealed in a stainless steel capsule inside a lead-lined rotating assembly, further encased in the protective head of the machine. These multiple layers of shielding were designed to direct radiation only where needed during medical treatments. Brazilian law requires proper disposal of such dangerous materials, but the hospital in question was entangled in legal disputes, and the equipment sat abandoned for over 2 years. Security gradually decreased at the vacant building, setting the stage for disaster. On September 13, 1987, two scrap metal scavengers, Roberto dos Santos Alves and Wagner Mota Pereira, broke into the abandoned hospital looking for materials they could sell. They found the teletherapy unit and, not knowing what it was, saw value in its metal components. Using a wheelbarrow, they transported the heavy device to Alves' home. Over several days, they worked to dismantle it, breaking through the protective layers that had safely contained the cesium for years. As they breached the final shield, they discovered something fascinating: a blue, glowing powder. Within hours, both men became violently ill, with vomiting, diarrhea, and dizziness. Alves' hand developed a burn where it had contacted the powder. They suspected the substance might be causing their illness, but had no idea that they were experiencing acute radiation syndrome. Despite their sickness, the men sold the scraps to a junkyard owner named Devair Alves Ferreira. The sale included the remnants of the device and the mysterious glowing substance. Ferreira was immediately fascinated by the strange blue powder that glowed in the dark. He brought it into his house and showed it to his wife Gabriela. They thought it might be valuable, perhaps even supernatural or magical. Gabriela later described it as beautiful, like a deep blue sparkle that reminded her of carnival glitter. What the Ferreiras didn't know was that they were handling one of the most dangerous substances on Earth with their bare hands. The blue glow wasn't magic, it was the effect of radiation on the surrounding air. Tragically, Devair shared his discovery. He gave fragments to family members and friends. His brother Ivo took some home. A worker at the junkyard, Israel, took some to his house. And perhaps most heartbreakingly, Devair's 6-year-old niece, Leiji, played with the powder, spreading it on her body and even eating a sandwich afterward with her contaminated hands. Within days, a widening circle of people fell ill with similar symptoms: vomiting, diarrhea, fever, and mysterious burns. Local doctors were baffled. They treated the symptoms as stemming from some sort of food poisoning or tropical disease. Gabriela Ferreira, however, made the connection between the powder and the illness. When her husband's hair began falling out in clumps, a classic sign of radiation exposure, she gathered remnants of the material in a bag and took a bus across town to the hospital. There, a visiting physicist named Walter Mendez immediately recognized the danger. Using a borrowed radiation detector, he confirmed his suspicions. They were dealing with a major radiation emergency. On September 29th, more than 2 weeks after the initial exposure, Brazilian authorities were finally alerted. By then, the contamination had spread widely through Goiânia. Once officials understood what they were facing, they acted quickly. Brazil's National Nuclear Energy Commission established a triage center at the Olympic Stadium, where they began screening thousands of potentially exposed individuals. Teams in protective suits with radiation detectors traced a path of contamination through the city. They found radiation in homes, businesses, and even on banknotes in circulation. They discovered that public buses had spread contamination across routes spanning the city. The international community responded as well. The International Atomic Energy Agency sent experts and equipment to assist in what had become one of the worst radiation accidents in history outside of nuclear power plant disasters. Using chalk, paint, and barriers, response teams marked contaminated areas throughout Goiânia. To residents, it must have seemed like an invisible enemy had invaded their city, one they couldn't see, smell, or feel until it was too late. The human toll was devastating. 4 people died within weeks. Leiji, the young girl who had played with the powder, Devair's wife Gabriela, Israel, the employee who had taken the material home, and Admilson, a friend of Devair's who had helped handle the material. Their deaths were excruciating. The radiation at high doses destroys the body from within, causing internal bleeding, immune system collapse, and organ failure. Leiji was buried in a lead-lined coffin in a special cemetery plot encased in concrete to prevent further contamination. In total, 249 people were found to have significant contamination from the accident. Around 112,000 people, which was about 10% of the city's population at that time, had to be screened for radiation. Some survivors required surgical amputations where radiation had destroyed tissue beyond recovery. Others faced increased cancer risks that would follow them for the rest of their lives. The decontamination effort was immense. 7 major contamination sites were identified, along with 42 residences that required significant decontamination. Ultimately, 85 houses had to be demolished completely. Topsoil from vast areas had to be removed and safely stored. Personal items, clothing, furniture, appliances, anything that had absorbed radiation had to be collected and disposed of as radioactive waste. In total, the cleanup generated more than 3,500 cubic meters of radioactive waste. This material was placed in concrete containers and transported to a permanent waste repository built specifically for this disaster. This cleanup cost millions of dollars and took months of intensive effort. Even today, certain areas of Goiânia are monitored for residual contamination. The Goiânia accident fundamentally changed radiation safety protocols worldwide. The International Atomic Energy Agency strengthened its guidelines for securing orphaned radioactive sources and materials no longer under proper control. The accident demonstrated how dangerous radioactive materials could be in public settings, especially when people had no awareness of what they were handling. It highlighted the critical importance of proper security, disposal, and education about radiation hazards. For the people of Goiânia, the aftermath brought another kind of suffering. Many survivors faced discrimination and stigma. Local products were boycotted out of unfounded fears of contamination. Some residents of Goiânia found themselves turned away from hotels in other cities once their origin was known. The legal consequences included criminal charges against the owners of the abandoned clinic and several officials who had failed in their regulatory duties. The Goiânia accident stands as a sobering reminder of the invisible dangers that exist in our world. It shows how a material the size of a table salt shaker could devastate a community and take lives when safeguards fail. What makes this tragedy unique is that it wasn't caused by weapons or power plants, but by a medical device designed to save lives through cancer treatment. It wasn't the result of war or political decisions, but out of ordinary people making understandable choices with catastrophic consequences because they lacked crucial knowledge. Today, Brazil's response to Goiânia serves as a case study in disaster management. The protocols developed have been used to address other radiation emergencies worldwide. In this way, the suffering of Goiânia's citizens has potentially saved countless lives elsewhere. As we continue to use radiation in medicine, industry, and energy production, the lesson of Goiânia remains vital. These powerful tools require equally powerful safeguards and education. Stay curious, stay informed, and most of all, stay safe. Thanks for watching today's video on this devastating but important historical event. If you found this informative, please hit that like button and subscribe for more historical deep dives. And let me know in the comments what other overlooked historical events you'd like to learn about. Until next time, this has been Deadliest Disasters.